Welcome to the Top Business Leaders Show, powered by Rise 25 Media. We feature top founders, executives, and business leaders from all over the world.
Chad Franzen here, co-host for this show where we feature top restaurateurs, investors, and business leaders. This is part of our SpotOn Series. SpotOn has the best-in-class payment platform for retail, and they have a flagship solution called SpotOn Restaurant, where they combine marketing, software, and payments all in one. They've served everyone from larger chains like Dairy Queen and Subway to small mom-and-pop restaurants. To learn more, go to spoton.com. This episode is brought to you by Rise 25. We help B2B businesses to get ROI, clients, referrals, and strategic partnerships through done-for-you podcasts. If you have a B2B business and want to build great relationships with clients, referral partners, and thought leaders in your space, there's no better way to do it than through podcasts and content marketing. To learn more, go to rise25media.com or email us at support@rise25media.com. Hospitality pioneer Robert Hall began his career in the wine industry and has grown to become the CEO of one of the fastest growing restaurant and hospitality companies in the country. With nearly a dozen brands in his portfolio and unique additional growth in managed dining services, Robert Hall brings his decades of experience in fine dining to create memorable customer experiences and a culture of excellence. Robert, thanks so much for joining me today. How are you?
Thank you so much for having me. Great to be here with you.
Hey, so tell me a little bit more about Refined Hospitality Concepts and how it came about.
Absolutely. So several years ago, I met a gentleman through our catering endeavors here in the Dallas market. We have a lot of various types of functions that we do with our catering business. One of which is on the high end of the spectrum, in-home. Political fundraisers, things of that nature, a lot of political events, a lot of real estate events. And so I'd met this gentleman, Mehrdad Mohedi, who was the CEO and president of Centurion American Development, who had a lot of assets and projects around the DFW area and beyond. He's got projects elsewhere in the country as well. But in a nutshell, his one of his most well-known holdings here in Dallas is the Statler Hotel, the historic and iconic Statler Hotel in downtown Dallas that he brought through a whole redo process, revamp process in conjunction with the city of Dallas and several others. So I'd met him and learned about what they had done there, got the hotel open, had several brands or concepts that had performed well, and some that they were looking to just have as a limited time only and maybe do something different every couple of years. And in a nutshell, through the process of meeting and getting to know that gentleman, I eventually struck such a great rapport with him and had such a great respect for him and what he does. I just kept taking on more and more projects until eventually, he asked me, and I'm very grateful to bring my businesses and his businesses all under one tent and focus on, executing hospitality for a very wide range and diverse demographics, depending on the sites or the development or the hotel or the restaurant opportunity that he may not be focused on at the time with him and his affiliated group. So for me, it was fascinating because it was a way to diversify across, fine dining, Tex-Mex, casual Italian, upscale. And so, about 4 years ago now, we made that decision and we had a great start. And I'm sure you know where the story goes from here as we enter and traverse our way into the COVID impact to the hospitality industry, which I chuckle almost as a nervous reaction, probably because of all that we've all gone through as an industry, and some of us have fared better than others. And I'm very grateful that we were big enough and in a market that was a little bit easier to traverse the waters, being in Texas, than a lot of my colleagues and friends I came up with in this industry. But point of the story, Refined Hospitality Concepts came about through that relationship, and we've rapidly expanded into many different areas of food service and restaurateuring. For example, I do all the food service for Southwest Airlines headquarters, T-Mobile headquarters. We do GameStop, and we have some fun corporate accounts and some more announcements, big ones coming this spring. But our love is steeped in the traditional brick and mortar restaurateuring, and that's where the passion comes from. And I grew up in my family's Italian restaurant back in the Midwest, and where I kind of got the bug before like your wonderful introduction alluded to, my grandfather gave me the opportunity to move to California and learn the wine business. And I was making that decision in the winter of '95, which that particular winter was a cold one where I'm from. And so about 3 days in a row of 80 below wind chill, I decided that I'd meet new friends, and California sounded great. So I went and spent some wonderful time in the winemaking industry, and which just enhanced my love for hospitality, and got to see a different side of the business from a distribution perspective. And through the years, it's definitely woven its way into the fabric of refined hospitality. Certainly one of my passions, being, wine and wine and spirits, certainly.
So tell me about your beginnings kind of in the industry. You went to work for your grandfather, and
Right.
kind of take me through that and how that looked.
Sure. So it came about really when I was a young man. Not tell you my family history, but unfortunately, we lost my father at a young age, and the natural thing was to, and it was my father's son, so it was Robert Jr. I'm Robert Hall III. Most of my career in life, everyone just called my grandfather my dad, and still in a lot of the winery publications, they've referred to Robert Hall Sr. as my father, but he's actually my grandfather. So when we lost my dad, the natural thing to do was, once I, started driving my mom nuts, was to go hang out with my grandfather, and he was always at work. So if you wanted to spend time with my grandfather, he lived on a lake, he lived on a golf course. He didn't fish, and he didn't go golfing very often. He was at the restaurants, or he was at his businesses, and he was one of those old school gentlemen who just lived to work and loved hospitality. I joke, but it's a true story. I tell to my staff sometimes when I get the opportunity to speak to our staff at a new opening. My grandfather used to wear an apron on Friday and Saturday nights, and he would go and help the servers and waiters, bust the tables and interact with the guests. And he would keep the little dollars and so forth that the tables would give him. And we always thought it was so funny, because what people didn't realize is he owned the restaurant. He owned the strip center the restaurant was in. He owned the farm. He owned the section of land that the strip mall was on. So he never shied away from a dollar. He never shied away from being that hard work, grassroots type individual. And that's where I attribute my work ethic to, kind of that real shoulder to shoulder, hands-on, being involved in the business and being in hospitality at the table level, which admittedly gets harder and harder as we add more and more units. But I do press upon my leaders that old school approach to you're never bigger than the dishwasher or the service assistant. And refined hospitality carries that, hard work, old school approach, and it's DNA every day, even as we get more corporate and add more lofty title positions to our offices. Our true heart and core is in that simple desire to be hospitable and be at that table with the guests every way we can.
Yeah, as far as I can tell, you have concepts. All of them have locations right around in Dallas or right around Dallas. Why don't I just kind of walk you? Why don't I just kind of throw the names out there, and you can kind of expand upon maybe the history of the concept and a little bit more about it. What about Bourbon and Banter?
So Bourbon and Banner was one of the great concepts that I was fortunate enough to inherit when I took over the Statler Hotel. It had been concepted by a different group who had it for the first couple of years of the Statler, and now we've had it for about 3 years, and it's just been a wonderful addition to our portfolio and to certainly the hotel. But it's a speakeasy style craft cocktail bar. It's got its own little subculture in our company. The folks who work there tend to be extremely knowledgeable and passionate about, small batch bourbons and that whole, culture of whiskey and bourbon and scotch and great gins. And it's so much fun to engage in that unit when I get the opportunity. My love for wine and my education in spirits and wine is constantly challenged. I'm happy to admit by going down into Bourbon and Banner and spending 20 minutes with those young people who are just so, to use a pun, thirsty for knowledge on a daily basis, and try and very often succeed at stumping me on the history or the background of a great cocktail, whether it be from New Orleans or points west. So Bourbon and Banner is just an awesome, small, intimate, dark, fun access. You got to go in through a phone booth and know the secret code, which isn't that secret. It's 1914 Star, if you're ever down there, which is our address for the Statler Hotel, 1914 Commerce. But that's Bourbon and Banner, just basically like it sounds. And there's some great little light bites that you can get there. And by light bites, you're in Texas, so steak frites is a light bite in Texas, right? But no, you get charcuterie boards and fun little snacks, and you can also get more heartier selections as well. But it's predominantly what it sounds like, a great little speakeasy cocktail bar.
What about Overeasy?
Overeasy is our we actually are I'm about 200 yards south of our second Overeasy location, where I'm sitting right now, in our newest Scout location on the Riverwalk out here in Flower Mound. The next Overeasy is not on the Riverwalk itself, but it's in a restaurant location a couple hundred yards from here, over by the hospital. And the original location was at the Statler Hotel. And since the day we opened, literally, it has just been a wonderful diner, cafe, darling, with a little bit more wine and spirits offerings than I would say your typical, breakfast, lunch haunt usually has. We did go a little bit extensive on the offerings there, just because we had the opportunity with Bourbon and Banter downstairs, and waterproof, which is a concept I'm sure you'll be listing coming up. But we had all this great opportunity there with the LBW offerings at the Statler, with all the concepts we were doing. So we just thought, let's make a great breakfast and lunch, kind of elevated diner style model, but let's add some great drinks to it, some great cocktails, and it just it's been an absolute gem for us, honestly, for the last several years. So we have a lot of goals to expand that brand in the DFW market and beyond, cautiously, because it is a very special location to us. We believe the Flower Mound location will have a lot of the similar opportunity that one has had to create a real following, and so we're excited about it. But it's a great breakfast and lunch spot. We are talking about adding a dinner service component, kind of in that spirit of the diner, great burger, chicken fried steak, things of that nature, great Southwest salad. So look forward to maybe seeing a PM activation of Overeasy later on this year. But for right now, it's our breakfast and lunch darling.
Sounds good. How about Primo's MX Kitchen?
Primo's is it was an icon here in Dallas, and it goes back to 1986. The story is really fun, that the folks who started the original Primo's, whether they intended it or not, the one on McKinney Avenue, which we now have the original location back. We've been operating the original Primo's location on McKinney Avenue in Uptown Dallas for over the last couple years, heading towards 3 years. And so we had a big legacy to try and align ourselves with. Once upon a time, late 80s, early 90s, all of the chefs who's who in Dallas, you name them, they hung out at Primo's. There were bottles of tequila on the table, and it just became this industry place to hang out and meet your girlfriend, boyfriend, maybe your wife or husband or night companion, weekend companion. It was a real hot spot, right? So people have memories of that era. But there's this whole section of people who've enjoyed the Primo's brand from just that great Tex-Mex staple in town going back, 30 years plus. So we wanted to find a new expression of Primo's to be reflective of, the DFW culture of today, which is a lot more diverse. We added, for example, Impossible meats, and we added some healthier selections. We do a fun little substitution on your standard Tex-Mex combo. You usually get rice and beans or substitute. So we'll let you substitute to a soup or a salad and give up your rice and beans, or a mini margarita. So we let you make those healthy switch outs, but we'll also let you add a little, mini margaritas. So we kept the fun and playfulness of the brand, but we contemporized the menu to offer some more selections that, our guests are looking for today. But don't get me wrong, you can definitely go get a chimichanga, cheese enchiladas, and we'll bury you in chicharrones and queso and all the wonderful things that people associate with Tex-Mex comfort food. But
nice.
Exciting brand, expanding fast. I just had lunch with a group before this at our Flower Mound location, which is our newest location. We're going to open Mercer Crossing next, which is 35E and 635 in Dallas. The original location is open today, as is the Statler Hotel location, as well as the Flower Mound. So exciting growth for that brand. A Dallas favorite that we've done in my summation, fortunately, a good job bridging yesteryear to today. And so we're going to keep evolving that brand over the next couple of years.
All right, very nice. You have a concept called Scout.
Yes.
What can you tell me about that?
So Scout, I'm sitting in the new Scout right now here in Flower Mound. The original location is at the Statler Hotel. That unit has a bowling alley, a vintage bowling alley, to blend with that mid-century modern expression that is the Statler from the era it was built. We had an historical obligation there to align the facilities with that style period. So you'll find that the Scout at the Statler has bowling alleys. It has a little bit more of that 50s, 60s look to it, but it does have all of the fun adult gaming, whether it's Walking Dead, video games, or your golden tees and photo booths, and it's also got ping pong and foosball and lots of fun things for people to do. It's used very frequently as an event venue as well. So we have a lot of people who do rent the space out for everything from birthday parties to corporate team building events and all those kind of things. So it's a chef inspired sports bar gastropub type menu. So you'll see little hints of Tex-Mex, you'll see little hints of barbecue, you'll see that steak staple, but it's just a great bit of Americana celebrating adventure, sports, the outdoors, in a fun and lively atmosphere. A little reminiscent of the sports bar craze of the 90s. I had the opportunity of at one time being involved in the Champs Americana ride, and some days it reminds me a little bit of that yesteryear fervor when sports bars really took off by adding an elevated culinary component. So Scout is got a lot of things for our guests to do to entertain themselves. It's also got a great menu where it can be a standalone destination for lunch or dinner or late night food. And we have great beer, local and international selections, awesome cocktail menu, and just a fun place to be.
What about Sfereco?
So Sfereco is a fun little twist on words. The polarizing name in the beginning with the marketing folks, but we wanted to do a meatball shop even more so than the pizzeria. I grew up in we had an Italian restaurant and banquet center, and family was Italian in the restaurant business, and through marriage, and so I had gotten sucked in very early on at a very early age, before I can remember, of loving Italian food and American Italian food in particular. I had a wonderful career in New York City, and I've eaten at some amazing fine dining Italian restaurants around the world. I've owned a fine dining restaurant. Sfereco is not that. Sfereco is meant to be tons of fun with the scratch kitchen. It's a sphere company, right? It was almost a joke with the chef and I. It makes spheres. We make meatballs, so we make meatballs out of plant-based meat. We make it out of seafood meat. We make it out of ground beef. So anything spherical was the idea. Where you could have a crab ball, burnt end barbecue meatball, a regular Italian beefcake meatball, a chicken and pesto meatball. So that was really the genesis of the idea. When I lived in New York, I used to love to go to The Meatball Shop, which is a successful chain of meatball shops in New York, opened by some folks I had a pleasure of meeting a few times. And anyway, when the pandemic hit, of course, everyone's ordering pizza. The brand was brand new, and so our pizza business did one of these, fortunately. And the meatballs became secondary to the narrative. However, as far as the P-Mix goes, it's pretty close, but pizza's still the winner. And by the way, lasagna and some of our pastas are we say third, but not by much. The product mix is pretty tight at the top, but pizza is definitely won during the pandemic. But it was meant to be a playful meatball spaghetti western. When you walk inside, you'll see the movie poster boards with the lights around them and a lot of red and green and fun colors. But you'll have Western cowboy figures with Italian writing on them. Because if you remember the Sergio Leone spaghetti Western era, which I was a favorite of mine growing up, and we just thought it was a fun play to bring. How do you make Texas or the West synonymous with Italian? And it's been done before by some groups or close to it in some concepts. But for us, we went all in with the whole, cowboys with Italian writing, from yesteryear is kind of our decor model, and also gave us a reason to have a bunch of whiskey and a bunch of tequila at the bar, because growing up in even my family's places or friends' places or places I like to frequent, let's face it, a lot of the beer and wine selections were, you could get that, jug of Chianti in the wicker basket, or you could get some Franzen, or you could get maybe a Coors Light, but they didn't have a ton of offerings. Whereas Sfereco, you can get, you can get high-end tequilas, small batch bourbons, you can get frozen drinks. So it's got a really great bar offering as well as being a great little meatball and pizzeria.
Out of all the meatballs there, what's your favorite?
My favorite is very simply, it's the Italian beefcake. It's the traditional. I love our meatballs. I love our sauce. It was an absolute process with the chefs to get us all to agree on the beef meatball, since it was going to be, the name and lights, as it were. And having the right ratio of ground beef with the right ratio of breading to give it that softness without cheapening the ball. Man, we've been in fights over that. I won't say, it's 2022, HR consider it, but let me tell you, the chefs and I have had some heated discussions about that meatball through the years. And right now, and over the last couple of years, we've really hit a great stride of consistency at the locations where it's in my opinion, and fortunately our guests, just the great balance of a great tender beef meatball with all the great flavor that can hold up to that red sauce and stand alone. I often eat them without any pasta or anything, too often, if you ask my wife, certainly. So.
The next one of your concepts, waterproof, that looks incredible. Can you tell me about that?
That is a very fun star of the show, certainly from a financial model perspective. I have a large background in love, and as I mentioned, in fine dining and concepts very steeped in the culinary tradition. Well, waterproof doesn't have a kitchen. It's on the 19th floor of the hotel. It's got a pool, a beautiful bar inside, beautiful cabanas and fire features and different areas to lounge and enjoy the all that's the rooftop at the Statler, being downtown Dallas. Its food comes from a combined menu, but is predominantly the Sfereco menu. So what's fun about waterproof is you can order a great pizza or Caesar salad or shrimp scampi or something like that and enjoy it up, 19 floors up, looking at the beautiful skyline of Dallas. But where we really become waterproof is in our bottle service, our champagne, our cocktail kits, our cocktail program, which if you try to go to waterproof on a Friday or Saturday nights, when it's going to be decent weather out, it becomes a very, very popular place and a very difficult place to get into sometimes, certainly without reservations, and can make the lobby at the Statler quite lively on Friday and Saturday nights for folks trying to get up to the 19th floor. So it's definitely been a gem in our portfolio. It's a lot of fun, beautiful views, great cocktails, great bottle service, and a really fun concept. We don't have any branded waterproofs ahead of us. In a couple of our new hotel projects, we do have concepts that are going to be celebratory of their pools and so forth. But I think waterproof is going to wind up being a one of a kind. And if you're in Dallas ever and planning to go near or around the Statler Hotel, or hopefully stay with us, definitely make a reservation and get it on your list. It's a lot of fun.
Did I leave anything out?
We've got a plethora of concepts that we're announcing shortly. You might have seen the Gas Monkey, Mr. Richard Rollins, and we're doing a couple of the new Gas Monkey grill concepts, bar and grill concepts. We have one in Louisville opening and one in Mercer Crossing. We also have a cocktail den called Parliament that is very famous in Dallas, and the owners of that have agreed to partner with RHC, and so we're opening one here in Flower Mound and one in Westlake. So those are some exciting projects coming up. And then we also have two new steakhouse projects coming up. One is in the Brazilian steakhouse tradition, and that's called Brasa. And that will find its way to some of our developments on the northern side of DFW. And then our first foyer in RHC into haute fine dining, I'm proud to announce, is going into the old Abacus building, which is in Uptown at 4511 McKinney there. Chef Rathman's old iconic fine dining restaurant from when he was on Iron Chef. And I my first job when I got down here from Manhattan, I was fortunate enough to work with Chef Kent and his partner, Bill Hyde at the time. And we had a great run after the restaurant had already been open, 15 years at that point. It was open for 20 years in total, I believe. But we're going back into that space with a lot of expectations. And the concept is called Monty's Modern Char House. And one of my, oldest friends and very accomplished chef, Chef Jason Tillman, who worked for David Burke and Danielle Ballou and Morimoto and several other wonderful institutions, was helming that project. So we're in the middle of construction right now. But we pride ourselves on, we're using Master's beef, which is a very famous old New York beef purveyor that sells to Peter Luger's, for example. And we're doing a concept that's steeped in the tradition of great technique in the classics, but with modern expressions on everything. So look forward to seeing a lot more about our Monty's Modern Char House in months to come as well. That's going to be a fun new addition to the portfolio.
Your concepts you kind of run the gamut on everything, and not only is it different food, but it's kind of there's a pool in one spot, a bowling alley in one
right.
spot. You kind of have separate different cultures in each place. What's kind of the key to success in terms of making sure all those things kind of stay on point where you'd like them?
Well, what a question, and I'll give you the most succinct answer I can. But that's one I could talk about all day, because that has been a lot of trial and error through the years and finding the right blend. But I think anyone in our industry and most industries would say that number one is people. You have to find leaders that are not only competent in whatever sector, whether it's fine dining or fast casual or even just catering or a corporate cafe environment. You have to find someone who's, not only experienced and competent in those environments, but also passionate, right? And that's a word that gets thrown around a lot. But for me, I can quantify it, because if I come and your first 90 days is easy, but 6 months, 9 months in, a year and a half later, what I pride myself at RHC is we still get excited about things. And our top leaders, the guys and gals who run this organization, when they're still excited, a year and a half into a brand, 2, 3, 4 years into a project, almost as if they were that first year, that's what really sets us apart, continuing to drive that narrative of creativity and excitement about that genre. And if you don't love what you do, you can't do that. So if you're a sports guy, a sports bar person, you're probably not going to go to the Linden Tablecloth restaurant and have the greatest time. So we're cognizant of that, trying to match our leaders with the concepts that we think they'll thrive in. And to make them successful, I have some more, boring CFO answers for you. But one of the things I believe, and I'm the CEO, our CFO is a wonderful guy by the name of John Pointek, but we believe in using a governing software. So I do have a governing software, Compete, that keeps us all in an app, keeps us all very cognizant of, to the minute, what our sales are, what our labor is. And when I first hire people, I tell them, you're going to think that this is a policing tool from me to you. But what you're really going to find is it's a policing tool from you to me, because it's a way that they can communicate and share things that are going on in their unit, whether it's a broken hand sink or just issues with staffing or, pool cues that need attention. It's a way of opening the communication in real time across multi-unit, because as you know, once you go to this level of multi-unit, you just can't be everywhere. And a lot of times you get stuck, and it's been a part of my corporate career. You find yourself, you only go to the places that need help, right? And so you're never really checking in with those who are on track, and then you create a gap. So we use a lot of technology to talk to each other, to share ideas with each other, to hold each other accountable, to share wins, and also to let each other know about, potential pitfalls and how we've arranged for something. So I would say that people and technology are two of the big focuses at RHC that set us apart, and really trying to, provide great hospitality while executing a successful business model.
I have one more question for you, but first, how can people find out more about all of your concepts, refined hospitality concepts?
Yeah, so absolutely, refinedhospitalityconcepts.com, or you can definitely go to the Statler Hotel pages or any of our our social handles. Now Primo's, of course, if you just Google Primo's MX Kitchen has its website. Sfereco has its websites as well. You can go to each brand, but if you want to just see overarching things about our company, our upcoming projects, you can certainly find those on the Refined Hospitality Concepts website.
I'm sorry, I have two more questions for you. How has COVID affected you guys, or impacted the
So
way you guys do operations?
the short answer is it's changed everything about the business other than what can't change, right? So you still need that core belief that you're here for your guests, you're here to provide an experience, you're here to be hospitable, and that COVID can never change. What it did for me, we were just talking about it. I had a luncheon next door with some of our bankers, and they wanted to just catch up and ask some of these questions about what's changed since the last time we saw you guys. How do you navigate these waters? Why are you still here? Why do you still want to do this crazy business? And the answer is this: we learned so much during COVID, and I don't like to focus on the negative side. There's all kinds of terrible things that everyone's covered enough. But what I want to say positively, it gave me the discipline to go after, our third-party delivery model, our takeout technology, to really. And the other thing is, sales cures all. That's an old saying in most businesses, but certainly in the hospitality business. Well, the reverse to that gave us the opportunity to really look at each line item on that P&L and go, wait a minute, what are we really paying for that napkin, or what are we really paying for janitorial overarching, or how are we really model? Good times can cover up a lot of fat too. And we didn't have a ton, but it gave us a way to systemize our approach to be more granular and have more intervals. I mean, literally, it used to be weekly, right? Now we're daily, and in some units hourly, depending on its trajectory. And so COVID definitely helped us sharpen our pencil, look at new ways to add revenue. Certainly brought us into the ghost kitchen model, and got us in this thought process of, wow, we never really thought before, what do we do with this, all of this capacity on days where maybe we're not using it to its fully potential? That could be, adding some ghost kitchen menus. It could be trying to amp up our Uber Eats, DoorDash, Grubhub, Postmates model, or a plethora of things. And then it was also, the biggest positive out of it was teaching our younger generation of managers. And I don't even mean age-wise. I just mean, shorter tenure or newer to the business managers, how to go look for top-line revenue, because that is the name of the game, right? And if you can get back onto a pre-pandemic sales trajectory again, which we're all, very eagerly heading towards, hopefully, keeping that, DNA in your company of having your whole management team still constantly looking creatively for ways to capture top line revenue, I think was the biggest positive that COVID brought. Because when times were high and we were all had a fatted calf, and we were just managing volume and holding on to the reins, as it were, to some degrees, you weren't always looking for that opportunity. And sometimes opportunities were passing you by that you just hadn't realized before. We connected with, and I'll close with this on this question, we reconnected with so many of our neighbors who self-admittedly, I wasn't calling that car dealership. I wasn't, dropping brownies off at that, college annex building downtown for UNT, things that we just taken the business for granted, right? And it gave us a reminder that you got to stay engaged, you got to get out and meet your neighbors, you got to stay with your tentacles out in many different areas, whether it be online or through traditional snail mail. So I would say COVID made us take a look again at how we can really stay focused on building other revenue streams and continue to try and stay healthy and keep a good bottom line, even in the most difficult times.
Final question for you. When you first started out working for your grandfather in the wine industry, and then getting into the kind of restaurants and hospitality, what did you find most appealing about that industry at the time? And is that still what you find most appealing about the industry?
What I fell in love with, honestly, and I talk about it often, is it was almost intangible. It was kind of an olfactory thing, and all I can describe it as just kind of like a rainy day in the spring where it hit me. I didn't know it was hitting me at the time, but I remember it was a rainy day in the spring, and I walked in the back door to the restaurant after school. I think I was in the 6th grade. I know I was in the 6th grade, and there was something about the smell of the stock met the what was cooking on the grill met the hot chocolate, the hot chocolate that was being made. And it was just kind of that whole sensory sight, sounds, and smells. And then that expanded to the cooperativeness of the staff and the camaraderie. And at that time was very pre-shift was very jovial in those times. It got very serious, especially the days my grandfather was there, which was every day. But just that whole intoxicating sights, smells, and sounds. And I still love that about the industry. I still love pressing palms with my guests. I still love walking back into the kitchen and smelling and hearing the sizzle. And I know it sounds so simple, but really for me, it's not much more than that. Just having a love for food, a love for the process. And I still have a great love for the people who do it, even though the business has changed so much in the past few years. In some ways, it's heartbreaking that we're having a harder time attracting people back to hospitality again, just because I think it's such a core human experience to love food, love laughter, love camaraderie, and enjoy the sights and smells associated therein. It's a sensory opera or circus, whatever, depending on the day. And it's not what I do. It's who I am. And I couldn't change it if I wanted to.
Hey, Robert, it's been great to talk to you. Thanks so much for sharing all your stories and the information, and best wishes in the future. Thank you so much for your time.
You as well. Hope to visit with you soon.
So long, everybody.
Thanks for listening to the Top Business Leaders Show, powered by Rise 25. Visit rise25.com to check out more episodes of the show and to learn more about how you can start your own podcast.